How to create common ground. Thinking beyond the zero-sum game. Hi, I'm Mike Moskalo. Today I want to talk to you about one of my favorite examples of bridging divides, of creating common ground, the case of the window at the library. Now this example comes from Fisher, Ury and Patton's 2011 book, their masterful Getting to Yes. This is a wonderful book. It's a very important book in the field. I urge you to please read this book. So let's get started. Let's meet Laurie and Ted. That's Laurie and Ted. They have an everyday dilemma. Laurie says, "Can we open the window?" Ted says, "Gee, I'd really prefer to keep it closed." Very simple everyday thing. One person wants the window open and the other wants it closed. What should they do? Well, what are their options? Well, they can open the window, and if they do that, well, Laurie gets what she wants, but not Ted. They can close the window, and if that happens, well, Ted gets what he wants, but not Laurie. What else can they do? Well, they can try to compromise. They can put the window halfway up, and then, well, they both get part of what they want, but they also get part of what they don't want, and no one is really happy. Now, do they have any other options? Well, enter the librarian. The librarian sizes up the situation and asks, well, what's the problem? Laura, why do you want the window open? She says, well, it's stuffy in here. I'd like some fresh air. Ted, why would you like the window closed? He says, well, I don't like the draft. So, do they have any other options? The librarian thinks, so Laura, you have a need for fresh air, and Ted, you have a need to avoid the draft. I wonder if we can solve both of your problems at the same time. I wonder if we could find a solution that meets both of your needs at the same time. She thinks. And then she comes up with a solution. She goes into the other room, opens up a window in the other room, opens up a door, and now the fresh air comes through. Look, fresh air, but no draft. Now, note how this situation illustrates the concept of a zero-sum game. We often think of conflicts as a zero-sum game. Now, what's that? A zero-sum game occurs when in a situation where one person's gain comes at the expense of another person's loss. One person can only move forward if the other person moves back. One person can only gain ground if another person loses ground, kind of like a football game or like opening and closing a window. In a conflict over whether a window should be open or closed, only one person can get what they want if the window is open, and only one person get what they want if the window is closed. One person can get what they want only at the expense of the other person. So opening the window literally comes at the expense of closing the window. If I open the window by a certain degree, well, I must close it by that degree. If I close the window by a certain degree, I must have only a less degree of the window being open. And it goes that way throughout. Advancing the window in one direction closes it off in the other direction. Now, to resolve this conflict requires that we think outside the box, to use a popular metaphor. In this case, we're thinking outside the window. And when we think outside the window, we stop thinking in terms of the limited options that exist whether you open or close the window. If you just think in terms of opening and closing the window, you can only have certain options as a zero-sum game. Stop thinking in the window, think beyond the window. And that's what the librarian did when she opened the door and opened a window in another room. She literally stopped thinking outside within this window and started thinking outside of the window for new solutions beyond the confines that you had in the zero-sum game. So when you think beyond the window, conflict doesn't have to be a zero-sum game, and that will not always work, but it will work in many, many, many situations, many more than we think might be the case. So, why two heads are typically better than one when you're trying to solve a problem? Well, the best solutions tend to be those that no one has thought of before. If we think in a zero-sum game, opening and closing the window, we're going to go back and forth and back and forth. But when we take each person's needs into account, and we have to ask each person in order to figure out what their needs are, well, now we can begin to solve the problem with two people, not one. Can't be done with just one person. The solutions that are the best ones tend to be the ones that no one has thought of yet. We have to actively bring them into existence. We can't think of them ourselves. That's why we need the other person to help us to collaborate, to create new solutions where ones didn't exist before. It's like moving a couch. You can't move the couch by yourself. And when you move the couch, when one person lifts, the other person has to adjust. And when one person adjusts, the other person adjusts back. It's a collaborative process where one person can't do it alone. Thanks for watching.